This podcast is brought to you by our partners at 8 Star Energy.
8 Star Energy, a clean energy company leading the future of portable and renewable energy.
To find out more, follow them on Facebook at 8 Star Energy.
I want attacking purposeful football all the time. Now we're going to have backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And puts player back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, get the pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spew up.
From inside the centre square. Boy's kicked the goal. Boy's kicked the goal. From inside the centre.
Hey Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd, a podcast about the most terrific, wonderful, awesome football club in anywhere that's ever been discovered or even imagined. That is the Footscray Football Club, trading as Western Bulldogs. I'm Danny McGinlay. With me is Tom Boyd. You might know Tom Boyd. He kicked that winning goal in that time we won the men's grand final. It was, look, if you've got I think it's on DVD somewhere. Go and watch it. It'll cheer you up. Tom, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, it's on DVD, YouTube, find it in all good bookstores, something like that. Good to be here, mate. Another week and an exciting round, obviously, for the women going into their first final this weekend. How are you feeling?
Oh, mate, that was just the best game. Watching us play Carlton at Icon, where, of course, famously we won the 2018 Premiership. It feels like our home away from home. And any Bulldogs fans of my generation just have many great memories there when 97, 98 we played home games before, 99 went before Docklands opened. But, man, it's Ellie Blackburn kicking the winner. By the way, Ellie Blackburn looked injured during the third quarter when Carlton were absolutely in control. She dug deep, ended up kicking the winning goal. It's genuinely one of the best AFLW games I've ever watched. Did you watch it, Tom?
Seen the highlights.
No, I'm absolutely outing you to the listeners right now. I was texting you, say, "Oh my God, Ellie effing Blackburn is amazing," and you went, "What? Sorry, I'm watching something else." And what were you watching?
Watching Dexter, actually. Heavily entrenched in some bonding time with my fiance, little of which we get these days in parenthood. I didn't want to jinx them by jumping on at the last minute and becoming that curse that I could have been. So,
here we go. That's your excuse. You don't want to jinx them.
To be honest, I don't really watch much footy at all.
Oh, I know. Try doing a podcast about footy with you.
I just pay attention from the distance. I feel like I've watched enough vision over the years. I could watch the highlights, pick up a few different things here and there. But I did see that last goal from Ali, and it was pretty bloody incredible.
Yeah, it's a shame that we were sort of buried at 6 o'clock on a Friday before a long weekend. That match deserved to be prime time in the sunshine. But I couldn't even get it. My kids were sick, so we couldn't get out to Carlton, but man, it's exciting. This is our first finals campaign since 2018, and here's a fun fact. Some people might not know this. The Western Bulldogs AFLW team is undefeated in finals. We have never lost a final.
So is that, how many final series was that?
One.
Yeah. Well, because we won it. How many premierships we won? Two.
No, we won 2016, but that was the final, just Hampson Hardeman Cup, when it was just Melbourne and us. However, if you listen to Peter Gordon and the marketing team, we're officially claiming that as a treble. We won VFL, AFL, and AFLW. It's a record that I don't know. I don't think will ever be broken by any other lesser club. So we're claiming it. 2 premierships. It's
pretty explicitly we were the best team in the AFLW. So we should take some sort of credit for that.
Oh yeah. And if you want to argue semantics, then I may just suggest football fandom might not be for you. So yeah, this is our second premiership. That was our second premiership. But yeah, we only played, because there was only 8 teams back then. We only played one final. We beat the Demons in a heart stopper at Whitten Oval. Very Ellie Blackburn-esque, a goal with only minutes to go. So, but I'm just feeling, by pure logic, we've never lost a final. We're now going into the finals. I think we should start getting tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should all get permanent tattoos based on us winning the Premiership this year. And look, I would hedge your bets. You can go to the point where you don't put the actual year that we want in, so that if it doesn't work out, then you can just add the date that's accurate when it is. Plus, this season's really confusing anyway, right?
Yeah, I think I've added it on. I've seen it online. People with Premiers 2020, and they've just got like 2020. They'll put the year in when it's won. I think it's Manchester City fans with Champions League things. But look, it's so weird, the Premiership tattoo. I don't get why people get them. In that, a lot of people ask me, "Did you get a Premiership tattoo?" And I'm like, this isn't a day that I will absolutely never forget for the rest of my life. And not only that, my daughter was born 36 hours later. I've got a couple of pretty big reminders about it.
Yeah, like the way I look at it, I mean, us as players, or a few of the boys, talked about doing it for a bit, and then all I was going to get was WBFC and then 16 next to it in small writing on my foot, because that's what Brad Ottens has. And I saw that when I was going through the AIS, and he showed me, and I was like, that is subtle. The only time people are ever going to see it is when I'm wearing thongs, and then they're probably going to get distracted by my joined toes anyway. So we're all good.
What? You have joined toes?
I have joined toes. Fun fact. This is
a bombshell.
I would have been a really good swimmer, is the often joke that I get.
Which toes are fused together? Which one have you got webbed feet on?
I have second and third toe on both sides. One is about halfway joined and the other is fully joined.
Okay, so not your big toe, your one next to it and the middle. So hang on, the piggy that stayed home and the piggy that had roast beef, they're fused together. They're both having a dinner date.
Second and third probably is an easier way to describe it than going down the nursery run.
We're very different people, Tom.
Yeah, it's the way. Look, we learn by doing. That's the sort of path that I was thinking of going down, and just never got around to it. So still unblemished in the tattoo department, but I do run across a few fans every now and again, and they go, big Bulldogs fan. I'm like, yeah, okay, I bet. Are you one of those Bulldogs fans who pulls up their sleeve and shows me this massive tattoo from 2016? Because those people are either mad or committed or both, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I did a gig for a cricket club. I think it might have been Werribee or something, but it was like a couple of months after you won the grand final for us. And a bloke literally had the WEG Mark Knight poster on the back of his head.
Yeah. I think I may have met that guy before.
He was a really...
that's a lot, isn't it?
Oh, mate, tattoos, that needles aren't fun at the best of time. I imagine getting one on the back of your scalp. That's got to be painful.
How many tattoos going into the game do you have to have for it to be not considered like a wildly outlandish statement by getting a club tattoo? Because I feel like if you've got 25 tattoos and 3 sleeves, like getting one more in the shape of a Western Bulldogs mascot or jumper or whatever is not a massive deal. But what's the over-under, do you think?
Oh, I reckon, it depends how big they are as well. I'd say anything under 6 is still a big deal. Once you're over 6, nothing, mate. You're just
wood for the trees sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I think is there a more outlandish fan statement than no tattoos to back of scalp, full head?
Actually, all right, let's put it to the listeners. I know a lot of you have got Premiership tattoos or Bulldogs themes tattoos. Show us all of them. We'd love to see them. But what was the who did the biggest leap from 0 to 100 straight away? Who got like a giant picture of Ted Whitten on their chest the day after?
And also if you have friends that have got them as well.
Oh yeah,
send them in as well, because sometimes it's easier to share our friends' misgivings or shortfalls than it is to share our own. So give us a look at the overarching fan tattoo kingdom that it may be.
And name and shame also other fans of other teams who have got terrible ones out there. You'd know famously the story Boydy of the Geelong fan who went over to somewhere like Thailand after 2007. And he got on one arm, and then he fell asleep in the chair, which is, I don't have any tattoos either, but I know that's a rookie move. You got to be supervising this. You got night premiers, right arm on one arm, and on the other arm, I think it said gay premiers, and then still said left arm as well.
Or is falling asleep in a tattoo parlor in Thailand the most cliche thing you've ever heard? Like straight out of like a Hangover wannabe. We had a guy from our local footy club, Bruce, his name was. He was a massive Hawks fan, and we went over he was over in Bali when we were over there when we were younger, and it must have been up to, I don't know, 13 or 14 or 15, one of the many seasons that they won. And he goes, I'm going to get a tattoo for the Premiership. I'm like, oh, no worries. And he turns up the next day or a couple of days later, and he has got shoulder to shoulder a hawk standing with a massive hawthorn jumper that probably goes from the middle of his back to the top of his neck to the tips of his shoulders. And I was like, I thought you were just going to get like a 4x4. No, not a foot and a half by a foot and a half.
And was that his first tattoo?
No,
okay, so yeah, there you go. Story checks out.
But still,
also, a hawk on your back.
That's a commitment.
You get that. My mate Carl Chandler has a joke of, I never get I don't understand people who get tattoos on their back. It's like, I want to not be able to see a hawk forever.
Yeah, I don't understand any of it, to be honest. But we've got some diehard fans out there, Danny, much like you. But perhaps I could see a nice snarling bulldog creeping over your eyebrows and yapping at your right ear. I think that would be nice.
Well, sadly, when you're pursuing an acting career like I am, you kind of have to remain clean skin. Otherwise, you're committing yourself to either not getting roles or spending a lot of time in the makeup chair covering them up.
Yeah, or alternatively, you're committing to being the thug in every single show that you ever act in.
Well, sadly, with my look, a lot of the briefs I'm getting are racist inmate number 3 and the like.
Well, I did see that photo of you with the gun, and it was quite terrifying. So,
that was a great role. That's coming out next year, I believe. Anyway, check out my socials for it.
How are you feeling ahead of this AFLW final, Danny? Are you feeling confident, not confident? Give us your tips and coverage.
I hate that it's at Victoria Park, which I do love as an old ground. I love it because it's close to my house. I love the vibe there. I hate that we have not won there since I believe the 70s. I'm like 0-6 going to games there, men and women, obviously, and it's just never a fun day. And it's not even close. It's never been a technical decision decided on points. Collingwood always thump us there, so I'm feeling very nervous about our first match there. I think it's the first final there. God knows how long. I was once chatting to Lee Matthews about playing at Victoria Park. Clang, just dropping names. But he said what he would do when he was playing for Hawthorn is in the second half of the last quarter, he would move to the wing to be nearer the dressing rooms because he knew as soon as the siren went, there's going to be 10,000 ferals running at him and he needed to get into that dressing room as quick as possible. So when even Lee Matthews is intimidated by a ground, it is a fortress.
Yeah, we played a couple of games there through the TAC Cup, I think, and I didn't mind it. I didn't mind playing there. It was sort of like a pretty straightish ground to play at. Served the full forwards well enough. Played a really good game there and got absolutely abused by Darren Burek as a 16-year-old after kicking 7.
And was he your coach or was he in opposition?
No.
Runner?
No, he was not. I was under 16, so he was the under 18s Eastern Rangers coach. Never met the bloke in my life, and had kicked 7, missed a snap from 10 metres out on my right foot, and he just barreled me after the game, telling me how selfish I was, and I was like, it was 10 metres out, mate. What are you talking about? And I gave it back to him. And anyway, apparently he hated me for like 8 months after that until he realised that I wasn't the most annoying, arrogant prick to coach. But it took me a while to win him back, supposedly. But I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm 15, and we've never met. Why are you yelling at me? Like, who are you?
Hey, I think, what was his name? Boris? Billy? What they used to call
Boris.
him? Boris. I think Boris just got the vibe that you were the sort of person who would watch Dexter rather than a clutch AFLW game. I think he's a good reader of personality.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How do we play this game? You've played the actual ground. What would you be doing tactics-wise? Obviously you probably don't know what Collingwood are going to do, but just from a ground perspective, how would you run that game?
Well, I think I would look back to our session with Kate O'Halloran was really interesting to me because fundamentally the AFLW and the AFL is a different game. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different style. The strengths of the girls and the boys are drastically different. So I don't know if I'd have a huge amount of insight into like specific tactics, but all I say is that, like, generally speaking, finals are won by not teams who so much go out on a limb and try and like reinvent the wheel. It's usually the teams who just turn up for 100% of the individual efforts that are required to win. And what usually happens, and I think I may have described this on this podcast before, but essentially the way that you can look at a game of footy is that every single person is going to have something relevant to 100 opportunities to have an impact every single game. Now, that's obviously going to go from more as midfielders and less as forwards and whatever, but just for the simplicity of it. If you have 100 opportunities to make an impact, when you're a young player in your first couple of years going into the league, you often get to the point where it's like you might win 20%, 30% of those contests, and then you'll break even 30 or 40, and then you'll have just blatant losses for the rest of that percentage. And, some players are much better. Like you look at Bont when he came in, he's probably much more at that sort of 50 or 60% his ability to win, but he didn't have the volume of contests that he has now in his first season. But over the course of the time, what Bont is terrific at is that he rarely ever gets beaten. Like he might only lose 10% of contests, and then 20% he halves, and the rest he wins. So, as a team, the goal for a final series or a finals game is to lose as few as you possibly can, to make it a grind. And even if it's like we're only winning 20%, but 60% are a pure, dead even draw, that's fine. Eventually the tide will start to turn and the opposition will get frustrated in their ability to, struggling to move the ball or struggling to get on top and score freely. So that's generally speaking what finals look like in my experience. And, you just have to put yourself in a position as an individual, as a team, to eventually get to the point of the game where you do have an opportunity to win. And then all we have to do is go out and win. So that'd be my overall thoughts. And I'm excited. I think, it's a great experience for a young team, particularly, and it can either serve as a great building block to the future or an absolute travesty that destroys the fabric of the team. So one way or the other, it'll hopefully work out that we turn up a really good game, win, lose or draw, that we'll have an opportunity to look back at as a real learning experience for the whole team.
Now, listeners, I just want to remind you that as intelligent and well thought out as Tom Boyd's answers are, he is making this up as he goes along. Boydy, what would you know? You never lost a final.
That's true. I lost finals in juniors.
So did I, mate. Anyone could do that.
Yeah. I probably only won 5 premierships over the course of my football career.
You dud.
Lost a couple of prelims. But this is in all honesty, the reason why you lose at the junior level is the same reason you lose at the top level. And traditionally that is that you need enough players who, again, can win and harvest more contests than the other team. Because if you look at, the Sydney and Geelong grand final recently is not a great example, but if you look back to the finals that have been won previously, the teams that have more contributors across the board are the ones who tend to win. Like I still remember Nick Lawson loves telling me about his when he got knocked out against Geelong in the 2020 Premiership. He still tells me to this day, he goes, yeah, I had as many tackles as like half of Geelong's team and I only played 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And that's a silly stat, but the idea behind it is true in that sense that you need as many players who contribute across the board as possible. You can't have any passengers in finals and particularly in grand finals. So the more girls that play well, the more likely we are to win. And then it's just going to come back to seeing which cream rises to the top and, our core midfield that, can hopefully will us over the line.
Yeah, so sadly, I'm just looking at Collingwood's injury list. They've Ruby Schleichler, I believe is her name, and Erica Fowler. They're good players, but they're not the brand name, household recognisable ones. We've got in our injury list. We got Kirsten McLeod's out for the season, Brittany Goodnecht, Aurora Smith, Millie Brown. Riley Wilcox could be tested, and a big loss was Elsa Brown, Eleanor Brown. They call her Elsa. She was looking devastated. She took a head knock and failed the concussion test and looked absolutely devastated because she knew she was going to miss first week of finals. They're going to test her. I would love for her to get up because she's been an absolute workhorse for the last couple of years in the rebuilding process. I want to give a shout out to a player who I don't think gets enough credit in the AFLW team. That's Elizabeth Georgia Starthus. I think she really flies under the radar and she does so many amazing things. And do you know a main reason I reckon she doesn't get the shout out, Boydy?
Tell me.
Because she got a long name. I reckon because AFLW gets so little coverage in the mainstream media. They're just saying things like, oh, yeah, the Bulldogs playing well, Ellie Blackburn, Lammy, Dee Berry, and Georgia Gabby Newton did well.
Yeah, I do feel that's why, so many of the players get those nicknames, right? Like, it's easier to say the Bont.
Yes.
And
you had it easy.
Yeah, I've only got bloody 7 letters to choose from if you use my abbreviated first name. So, yeah, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. You can always a few times when I've been holidaying with my wife, we've been called over the loudspeaker for whatever reason, and they always go passenger call for Danny McGinlay, and I know they're about to say my wife's name, and there's always that pause because she's got the Ukrainian name. They go, "Yep, Danny McGinlay," and you can hear the fear in their voice before they pronounce it. And his wife, can she come?
Yeah. It is funny. You can hear that in all of the airport announcements, particularly when there is a complicated last name. Yeah. But yeah, what's the lesson? Don't be late for your flight all the time. It's probably the best thing for you to learn from that.
They're upgrading us, mate. They're upgrading us on points.
All right, mate. Well, I think what we did a couple of weeks ago was obviously go through and watch the highlights from some of the wins for the Bulldogs. And we're going to start doing that actual highlight watching on the Patreon for all of our wonderful Danny Boyd Patreons. But
get on board. Only $5 a month. That's nothing. That's less than... Yeah. You work in accounting. What's that per day?
It's probably like 20 cents.
20 cents a day. Maybe. And all proceeds go to feeding our kids. So come on, get on board, you legends.
Actually, indirectly she's starting on solids now. I was about to say indirectly through feeding Anna to feeding Rani, but she has started nibbling on a few bits of banana and all that sort of stuff, which is exciting. But what we thought we'd do today is talk about probably the last really optimistic part of the AFL season for the Western Bulldogs, other than cheering Carlton's demise on in the last round. But other than that, this is probably honestly, so we're looking at rounds 9 to 13 or something like that, Danny?
Yeah, let's go with those.
It's a period of time in the AFL season where, in hindsight, things look pretty bloody good compared to what they look like at the end of the year, which is exciting. And so we're going to have a quick chat about 4 or 5 games where we come up against, obviously, Collingwood, who end up finishing 3rd, and we're lucky enough to beat them. We beat Gold Coast. We beat West Coast by 101 points over there. Yes. And then just fell short against the eventual premiers in Geelong.
Yeah.
And, what do you remember of this period of time, Danny? Because it seems like forever ago, right?
It really does. I remember, let's just start with the Collingwood game. I'll tell you this. Do you remember that week, Boydy, you and I said on our pod, it might have even been a Patreon, how pessimistic we were going into this game because Collingwood had just exploded into the season with all this energy, and we had started so badly. It was looking pretty grim. I do remember I was texting a Collingwood supporting mate each other. He was convinced that we were going to win. I was convinced they were going to win. It was really unlike me because I'm a chronic optimist, but I was feeling that we were going to get absolutely thumped, and how wrong I was. And I do remember sending a gloating text, which I don't often do, but just saying to my Collingwood mate, saying, "I'm very sorry, you were right. I was wrong to doubt you."
Yeah, I remember. I was just looking through the stats and storylines, and what just popped into is Big Timmy English was sick and missing games, which was like concerning given the authority that Collingwood have had in the ruck over the course of the last year. But if you actually look at the stat line for the day, this is probably one of the few times throughout the year where that star-studded midfield played to its 100% capability.
Yeah.
You've got Bailey Smith had 41 disposals, McRae had 37, Treloar 35, Caleb 34, Libba 31, Dale 29, and Bont with a measly 26, and Dunks with 24 and 3 goals. I feel like going into the year, we were so optimistic just because we had an overwhelming level of talent in that middle part of the ground. And it never felt like we got that clicking to its full potential throughout the year. I mean, Bont looked a bit hobbly at times with an injury that lasted basically from round 1 or 2, I think, with a foot and an ankle that he was playing with. Looked like Dunks was finding his feet and had a really good season, obviously winning a B-net, but Ads sort of fell behind a little bit, maybe with some injuries and whatever. Just couldn't seem to get it clicking. And those halfbacks who had such great years the year before in Caleb and Bailey probably they didn't lose a step, but just, by way of the team not going as well as it had previously, perhaps just didn't look quite as good either. And, the one stable member of the team that we can always rely on was Libba, and he just seemed to have an incredible season across the board.
Yeah, he did. But this game was so good. I mean, the score at quarter time was 41-9, and Collingwood didn't get a goal till like the 25-minute mark, and we were already six goals up at that point. We should point out, apparently Collingwood had also got the flu. Pendlebury and Jack Ginnivan were out, and they're real barometers for Collingwood. But let's not focus on that. Let's just enjoy the fact that we smashed them, and it's even sweeter, considering how well they went on to 1 point shy of a grand final berth. And, we absolutely thumped them. I also remember Buku Karmas played really well this game, mostly because me and my mate, every time they got the ball, the stadium would do that Buku, and we would turn around and go, "Oh, typical Collingwood," booing the dark-skinned player, which did not ingratiate us to the fans around us.
No. And also in this game, obviously the reunion with Lipper, Paddy Lipinski, who obviously had a really terrific season. And obviously I just feel like this game in particular, we looked like we had control of the game, which we didn't really get to show very many times throughout the year. Even in the wins that we had against good sides, it never really felt like we had things under control.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous in the start of the last quarter, but now looking at it, they only got to within 25 points. So I should relax. I should have relaxed more and enjoyed it, and I did. It was a brilliant game, and it's one that I think I'm gonna chuck on. We are going to go through the highlights on Patreon, but I think I'm just going to put it on while I go about my business today in the background.
Yeah, I think so. We're 3-5 going into this game, and obviously needing a win, so that was great. And then obviously to follow it up to get back to even Stevens in terms of 5-5 against Gold Coast next week. And I remember this game so vividly because our great mate Luke Beveridge came out in fierce defence of Aaron Norton because Big Sam Collins was hanging on to him like an absolute wet rag, as all good defenders should do, might I add. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not supposed to be easy as a forward, but at the end of the day, when you have some monster, I mean, Sam Collins would be 110 kilos or something.
Yeah.
If all they're doing is just making sure that you can't run near the ball at all, it is so hard to play well. So I do remember Bevo blowing up distinctly after the game and trying to send a few clips into the AFL, and then media jumping down his throat saying, "This is just good defending, mate. This is what you're supposed to do."
There
So,
we go.
you know, perennially being a forward in my bones, mate, and sooking about every free kick that I never got, I think it was, you know, absolutely abhorrent, and they should have given Naughty about 12 free kicks. But yeah, it was another good, strong win, because I think at this stage Gold Coast was still looking like they were going okay, and they sort of threatening to be a half decent side, as they do till about round 9 or 10 every single year before falling away miserably.
Yeah, and we were doing that classic thing that we do to the Queensland teams. Playing them in Ballarat in winter time is just always going to give us that edge. So I mean, they put up a good fight. This was also election day. I don't know if you remember that. I was because I remember having to run out at during the third quarter and vote, which was really, I love voting normally, but I was really like, come on, just hurry up, come on, I'm gonna get back. And that's when I do remember going in and voting, and we were up by like 30 points. And then when I came out, the lead had been cut to only about 12. So I was, it was pretty bad.
This was one of also, I remember that around this time of year, we were sort of talking about maybe Bont just not looking quite himself, and then just took this game over. He actually, this is the funny thing, right? To be very clear about my shortcomings in terms of ability to tolerate changing conditions. I hated playing on the Gold Coast, but at times I hated playing in Ballarat too. And I remember we played this practice match up there. I can't remember, maybe it was against Melbourne in my first season, 2015. And like, it was horrendously windy, terrible weather. And Bont just found a way and kicked like 3 or 4.5. And
this was Craigieburn.
He did it at Craigieburn, but he also had a really good game in Ballarat one year, and I can't remember who it was against. But
not the D's.
It was just like Bont just has, or maybe it was Port Adelaide, maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But Bont just had an ability, regardless of the conditions, like he'd always be able to find or sense the time and game that it was, and how important it was for him to step up and just, he just plays well everywhere, which, you know, is why he's been probably one of the most consistent players to play in history over the course of the last 9 seasons. So, mate, another good win and sort of giving us a good sort of sense that perhaps we actually had a positive future in front of us, much to our dismay.
And in the next week, up against the West Coast Oz kickers, they really should have been called this at this point. They were so decimated by injury and everything. But I'm never going to sneeze at a 100-point win, and I feel like they never happened, and we've had 3 in the past 2 seasons.
I think like for me, because West Coast for the best part of 10 years have been. Well, I mean, for the best part of 15 years, have been always good. Yes. Like since 2007 or whatever it was that the Judd and help me out here, Danny. Who was
Cousins, Kerr,
Kennedy. The Judd and Kennedy trade happened. So
that right.
They've had obviously Kennedy playing incredible football for them. They've had that incredible midfield, and they seem to have rejuvenated themselves every other year to find some guns, a bit like Geelong in a sense.
Yep.
But since the hub, that team has just gone down the drain so quickly. And it was so obvious because they won the Premiership in 2018. Right?
18, yep.
And then 2019 they were still okay, and then 2020 they were like, we're not staying in the Gold Coast any longer.
Yeah. Which is, it's weird, since there was that documentary about the 2020 season. I don't know if you watched it. I think, what was it even? I can't even remember what it was called.
Man the Mark or whatever it was called.
Yeah, something like that. And from that, I mean, it followed Richmond, it followed West Coast, it followed Eddie Betts.
GWS as well.
GWS, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, Eagles would seem the most likeable team out of that. There was some really cool Nick Nat just being a very charming bloke to the I remember there's one scene that I particularly liked where they were all getting the PCR tests and they were getting them every day. But there was one particular nurse that none of them wanted because she was rough. and they're all sort of just like lining up, and Nick Nat is trying to work out where he should stand in the line to avoid getting her. And then inevitably he got her, of course, and he just had to pretend. It's like, oh no, this will be fine. And you could see the fear in his eyes because she's about to stab his brain.
I can't imagine trying to give a bunch of draftees who were picked up like 15 years ago the heads up that, hey, in 15 years, you're going to have to deal with like which nurse you want to get a PCR test from. Because I remember the boys telling me about it too, because obviously I'd retired by this stage. And they were like, oh, yeah, we've got to go to Etihad like twice a week to get tested or whatever. And they're always like trying to line up their cars to find a nurse, because there was always one who was just like, come here, grab the head, shove it.
Yeah. Oh.
So what a well, I don't know. I don't know what happened to that team. They went from being such a perennial powerhouse with such strong senior players to, you know, quite frankly, losing by 101 points in your new stadium over in Perth against a mediocre team at this stage in the Bulldogs is not a great way to sort of wrap up your season.
No, and look, long may it last. There's certain fans that I think have been spoiled. Hawthorn, now Geelong, Sydney, West Coast, and now they just need a proper lean period. I'm not talking, we haven't won a flag in 8 years. No, I'm talking you need at least a generation, of kids who never saw Premiership growing up.
Yeah, and also, the high likelihood is, given how big a fan base and how strong football culture is in the West, that they'll be just fine and they'll be okay in a couple of years' time. So we can just let them suffer for 24, 36 months, I think. Probably about right.
Even more. Yeah, let's go 48.
Or potentially what we do is we just let them get up to almost good and then keep them out of the finals like Carlton.
Yes. Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's what we're hoping for. All right, let's go to the next game in Geelong, where pretty much the opposite to the Collingwood game. I was feeling kind of optimistic about this, and then we got spanked in that first quarter. The score at quarter time, 44-11. Now, we weren't going to focus on the losses, but this one had a bit of a, like, after halftime, at halftime the score is 54-30. We score 30 points. They only score, they pretty even with us. Hang on. What's going on here with my maths? This is my state schooling coming through.
We were down the whole game and we seemed to rally from being down basically from the beginning of the first quarter all the way through to almost getting there, just getting close enough to make it interesting.
Yeah, and they got 2 late goals, which flattered them. So, yeah, we got to within 4 points halfway through the last quarter, and it looked really good for us. And then they did a Geelong, what they always do against us, and broke our hearts.
Yeah, there's 2 things that are worth talking about from this game, I think, before we wrap up, Danny. And the first is that Bailey Smith headbutted an Irishman. And 2,
that's right.
Who may, by the way, Zach Tui may be one of the toughest players to have played in a significant period of time. So not convinced he was prime target number 1. And 2, we just can't beat this mob. We can't beat them. And I don't know why. I mean, 1, they play that ground that's basically a cheat code to life. But 2, they just always seem to have the wood over us for some reason. And I can't exactly get a finger on it, but they did end up being the premiers, obviously, this year, as everyone is well aware of by now, because they won't stop talking about it.
Only for you, mate, who lives down in Anglesey half the time. The rest of us can avoid the Bellarine Peninsula pretty easily.
Well, I think the thing that it overwhelmingly, before we talk about those 2 things, that like looking at the season in segments like this, you can get this really like warped perception on how we went this year. Like, if we just take these 5 games or 4 or 5 games, you're looking at basically, beating, the team that finished 3rd, convincingly beating 2 good sides and absolutely demolishing another one.
Yeah.
And you're also looking at, we're within 2.5 goals of the team that ultimately went out and beat premiers, even though Jeremy Cameron kicked 6 against us and didn't look like anyone was playing on him the whole night. So, like, we almost looked good. But the problem is the season is 23 rounds long.
Yeah. As you always say, yeah, you don't want to be like you're the only person who gets a bit depressed if we win round 1 convincingly.
Well, I don't get depressed about winning round 1. I think the warped so I think the ultimate goal is for teams is you want to go in a couple of wins up on your losses into the bye, basically. So if you take halfway through the season, round 12, if you're 7-5, you're going, all right, like you're in a really good spot. But if you're 5-5 and then you're losing this one, so you're 5-6, it's like it's not 2 games difference. It's like it feels like 7 because you just lose all of your room for error, all of your room for injuries, all of your room for COVID or the flu or any other sickness that went through, and you just end up basically having to run the table and have a perfect season to finish, which is obviously very unlikely.
And what about if you're 12 and zip? I mean, that'll never happen to the Bulldogs. But how, would you be nervous?
No, it's too easy for us. No. I think I think the 12 and zip thing, or like going undefeated for a significant period of time, and having not done this at the AFL level, I'm only speaking from perception. I think that is vastly something that fans probably feel more so. Like they're nervous that like perfection is impossible. So how are we going to win? But I think if you look across the draw for the last couple of years, like for the most part, those teams who, like the last 10 years, because Geelong obviously had a couple of runs where they were doing exactly that. Mm-hmm. If you look at those teams, they tend to get to like round 16 or something, or 15 or whatever it is, and then they eventually lose a couple. And it sort of like resets them and gives them the like monkey off the back to go, it doesn't really matter. We're not going for perfection here. We just want to win a premiership. And there's a reason they won 15 straight in the first place, and that tends to shine through to finish the year as opposed to thinking like, oh, God, we have to go to this perfect season.
Okay, so you've heard it here first, folks. Winning a lot of games is good. This is the insight that you come to here on Danny Boyd. We will continue reviewing our wins next week. I think we'll do the rest of the season, which we had about 6 wins next week when Boydy and I are in the same room. I'm in Sydney at the moment, by the way. If you're in Sydney, come to the Comedy Store this weekend. You can see me telling jokes, and laughter will come out of your mouth. If you want to hear us review these wins with footage that you can watch along to, get on the Patreon. As it's less than 20 cents a day, unless you. But you can give us like megabucks. You know, you can give us $2,000 a month, and we will mow your lawn. That's one of the layers in there. So far, Peter Gordon hasn't taken it up, but we Hemsworth, we know you listen.
Exactly right, and you got to remember that you can be contributing to a very well thought out cause, because if I have to mow someone's lawn, my back is going to break, which means I'll need the money to pay for the surgery, and it's a full circle. You're basically sending a private school kid to school for about 45 minutes.
That sounds like fun. All right, thanks for listening. Don't forget, by the way, we haven't mentioned for a while, you can get T-shirts for our pod. Boydy's got a book. I've got a stand-up special you can stream. Got stubby holders. And we will be doing a live show before the men's season kicks off next year. This will finally be happening, where we review the 2016 finals with some of the champions that won it for us. We will be confiscating phones just so real stories can be told that won't be put on social media. It's going to be a great day. That's all coming up. Thanks for listening. Boydy, do you have anything else to plug while I'm on the sale?
No, go down and watch the girls this weekend and give them as much restrained support as possible, because it's a community game.
No, go nuts. Those finals.
No swearing. Sunday at 3:10.
Sunday 3:10. It's not, go nuts. But go the not swearing. Go over the top positive. That's the vibe of AFLW that we love. So just be there screaming, "You are so damn good!" Thank you, Boydy.
Thank you, man.
Today's episode was proudly brought to you by 8-Star Energy, creating energy for the future and power you can count on.
Follow them on Facebook, 8-Star Energy.
I gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had to love the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets. long, long road they're running for you. The dogs of Footscray streets.